Namaskar and welcome to Sunset Television. I am Vishal Dahiya and you're watching our show Perspective, where we bring you detailed analysis of key national and international issues. Today we're going to talk about India's Foreign Trade Policy 2023. Now, Commerce, Industry and Textiles Minister Piyush Goyal on Friday unveiled India's Foreign Trade Policy 2023. This new policy seeks to boost the country's exports to $2 trillion by 2030 by shifting from incentives to remission and entitlement-based regime. It also seeks to make the Indian rupee a global currency and allow international trade settlement in the domestic currency. Unlike the practice of announcing 5-year FTP, that is foreign trade policy, the latest policy has no end date and will be updated as and when required. Now, the FTP benefits have been extended to e-commerce exports, which are estimated to grow to $200 to $300 billion by 2030. The value limit for exports through courier service is being increased from 5 lakh rupees to 10 lakh rupees per consignment. In addition to the already existing 39 TEEs, the new FTP identifies 4 new towns of export excellence: Faridabad, Moradabad, Mirzapur and Varanasi. So today we'll take a closer look at various aspects of this new FTP 2023, that is foreign trade policy. What does it mean and how will it impact the industry and, of course, the export growth as well. And for more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of experts. Let me first introduce them to you. Beginning with, we're joined by Dr. Ajay Sahai. He is DG and CEO of FIEO. We are also joined by Subhash Chandra Pandey. He is former Special Secretary and Financial Advisor in the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. And Mr. A.K. Bhattacharya, Editorial Director of Business Standard, is also with us. Welcome, all of you gentlemen, to Sunset Television. I'll first begin with you, Mr. Bhattacharya, because we would like to, take a deeper dive into various aspects of this new policy which has been announced. I have highlighted some key points here, but what exactly is the motive looks like, and then what are those key points which then build the narrative towards achieving those aims?
Well, I think the policy has one of its goals as to make it very simple. And when I say make things simple, the sign of that is evident from the manner in which it has done away with this idea of having a time-specified, time-barred duration of the policy. This is a recognition of the reality. Instead of making it a 5-year policy or a 3-year policy, which requires to be extended from time to time, you have come out with a dynamic policy which will keep changing depending on the needs of the exporting community and the global, and in line with the global economic situation. So that's the realism part of it. That is a pragmatic policy. And also, I would say that setting a target of $2 trillion by 2030, if you do a quick calculation, you realize that the average CAGR rate will be coming around 15%. So to my mind, the 15% overall growth target for both services and merchandise goods, to my mind, is a feasible, realistic target. And this is where I would say that if the target had to be very ambitious, it should not have stopped at 15%. It should have been a little higher. That is number 2. Number 3 is that this focus away from incentives to compensating exporting community for the various the damages or the burden of duties and taxes is a good move in that direction, instead of incentives which often do not pass muster with the World Trading Organization, to defray the expenditure that the exporters incur on various taxes and duties is a once again a pragmatic good move. Finally, what I would say is that the focus on both the e-commerce and the courier consignments limit being raised from 5 lakh to 10 lakh, and the courier e-commerce exports target being raised to around 300 billion is a good focus, good move, because that is also an area of concern that we need to exploit that growing sector, which is the e-commerce sector. And final point I would make is that while the policy talks about the overall services and goods, there is some extra push needed for the merchandise goods exports, because we need to realize that the merchandise goods exports are not growing fast enough. For example, in the current year, they will not be growing more than 8%. It is the services exports which is, in a sense, bailing us out and giving us an annual export growth of around 13-14%.
Okay.
And now the target is 15%. So it is important to capitalize on the new global capability centers that are coming up, and the services exports boom, which we should capitalize on, but use all our might to make sure that the merchandise goods export sector actually gets a bigger push, because that is what will give us the push to manufacturing and therefore to jobs that we need to create. And finally, there's one goal that is there on the rupee trade.
Indeed.
It is once again, unlike the target, it is a very ambitious project. It will require the concurrence and the full participation of many other wings in the government and the ministry, including the RBI, to make that goal a reality and a realizable target.
Okay, fair enough. You summed it very nicely, Mr. Bhattacharya, in terms of the key aspects and also what is it intended to do in the near future and in the long run there as well. Let me bring in Dr. Sahai here as well. Dr. Sahai, from the point of view of India's export organizations, when we're talking about the other stakeholders, now they're the ones who will have to carry on this policy on their shoulders and then give that push which is required to achieve all those targets which Mr. Bhattacharya was pointing out, to be it the target of $3 trillion by 2030 or the other respective targets in smaller segments. How is the industry looking at this policy and the changes therein?
In fact, this is quite proactive and forward-looking policy, which of course meets the aspiration of the trade and industry. All the existing export promotion scheme, be the duty neutralization scheme or whatsoever are prevalent, they are continuing. So that's a big sign of relief. Secondly, government has also put focus on new areas. Merchanting trade is also one of the growing areas, and some of the challenges which were there in the merchanting trade that has been addressed in the new policy. We are putting our focus on e-commerce, a segment which is ideally suited to a country like India, where we have small businesses, women entrepreneurs, artisans and craftsmen, where we're looking at a very good achievable target of $200 to $300 billion. Government has already increased the value limit for e-commerce shipment. There will be digital integration of the foreign post office with the Ministry of Finance. We are also looking in setting up the e-commerce zone in different parts of the country. Government is looking into more granular approach, and they have moved away from the state to the district level, because the actual production happens in the district, and if we can address the supply side challenges at the district level, it will be a game changer for that. New town of export excellence have been recognized, and I'm pretty sure the association here will be looking into the greater aggressive marketing of the product with the support from the Ministry of Commerce. But to me, the real focus of the foreign trade policy is on the procedural simplification and digitization, which is an extremely good step, because we know that still, despite all the digitization, the transaction cost is little higher, and that's why the initiative which has been taken by the DGFTA by now expediting the various categories of application, where the time limit was 3 to 10 days, or even for some cases from 3 to 3 months. They have said that it will be brought within a day's time. They have also rationalized the application fee for various categories of application, particularly for MSMEs, where the fee which used to be as high as 10,000 rupees, they have brought it to just 100 rupees.
Okay.
They are also looking into the various other modes for the transportation of the digitized information also. The certificate of origin has been completely now on a digital mode. The ERCMC has been issued. The IEC code has also been issued online. And I'm pretty sure in times to come, they will look into these kinds of initiatives. entirely agree with the government view that we move away from the subsidy to competitiveness of the industry, and that's why the government is looking into more focus on the schemes which provide duty neutralization. And I'm very happy in today's scenario we are looking complete zero rating of exports,
Indeed.
where the duty drawback scheme, the GST scheme, and the RoDTEP scheme put together provide complete zero rating of exports. So far, exports have done extremely well despite all the challenges, and it's very satisfying that even in such challenging time in the financial year 2022-23, we will have an additional export of over $100 billion. Last year, we ended with $672 billion. And this time we will be in the range of 770 to 750, $75 billion. And roughly that means 40% of the additional GDP contribution comes for the export sector. So it's extremely good beginning, but we still have a long way to go. And I'm pretty sure the new foreign trade policy leads us to in that direction.
Okay. So the path is challenging and long as well. But as far as this policy is concerned, the way Dr. Sai is also pointing out, looks like simplification and digitization are the two key cornerstones. Of course, various focus areas there as well. Mr. Pandey, I'd like to bring you in. Another key change which has been brought in by the government is that usually we have seen foreign trade policies are have their tenure, 5-year tenure generally. The previous one was in 2015. It was supposed to, end in 2020, but due to COVID pandemic, it was extended twice. And then in 2023, we have the new policy. But this time around, there is no end date which has been given to the policy. Changes will be made as and when required to the policy. How does this, impact the sector from a policy making point of view? And why was this required?
Mr. Dahiya, this first the legal position, the foreign trade policy is formulated under Section 5 of the Foreign Trade and Regulation Act 1992 as amended in 2010. And the amended provision gives complete flexibility to the government to notify the policy and modify the policy at will. And this goes well with the current environment of prevailing uncertainty, global uncertainty. So where we cannot make short-term projections of GDP and other economic parameters. So even to project in the short term, what is going to be the profile of export and import will be very difficult. So it is firstly a response to the prevailing situation. By not having an end date gives flexibility, and it also brings an element of uncertainty so long as there is a continuation of existing schemes. And the government has said that in the interest of promoting exports, we will come and we will be making frequent interventions as and when it comes. I mean, this particular policy has a very, if I put that strong macroeconomic connect with that, it has a strong connect with the parallel efforts of the government to boost manufacturing in the country. The industrial share of industries in the GDP has been only static about 17%. And through PLI scheme, we want to boost manufacturing. And one of the incentives for boosting manufacturing would be not apart from employment generation, and it can be done only when the domestic demand is supplemented by export demand. Then only there can be scaling up and cost-effective manufacturing. So a lot of these exports that we see from $500 billion in 2018 to going to 2 trillion by 2030, it tells that we are going for, in a big way, for import-intensive exports. So, for example, we say electronics and e-vehicles. So in terms of a gross value, a large value of exports will be coming. But they are import-intensive, and in years to come, we will see the import intensity going down. So we left the we crossed 500 billion mark in 2018. And now we are in 23, we are touching 770. And that has been about 20% of GDP. So from this to go to 2 trillion, which would be something around 30% of GDP. It is doable in gross terms, which is 25% of GDP contribution coming from gross exports, is not an unworkable mass.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I think in the prevailing situation, this is the right response.
Okay, okay. Mr. Bhattacharya, another aspect which we would like to understand is, and something which has been announced in the policy, that is that 4 new towns of export excellence have been, identified. Now, there are 39 already existing TEEs, we call them. We would like to know as to how these TEEs have, added value to the entire ecosystem when we're talking about, and then 4 new additions. How will that help? And the way, these towns are selected, the way these towns are spread across the country, is there some focused policy area which we are looking at here, Mr. Bhattacharya?
This is an emphasis has been given to towns that have got a lot of local craftsmen, local artisan, local skills, local trade excellence is already there. Now, if you look at these 4 towns, Varanasi, which is probably would include the area of Vadohi, which is in the carpets. Then you have got Mirzapur once again, and the textiles and the carpets. Then you have got Moradabad, and then you have got Faridabad. Now, all these areas are sectors which tell you that the export focus is on merchandise goods. So clearly, the policy recognizes that a lot more needs to be done on the merchandise goods export front, because the global demand for goods is not going to go up. So exporting more and more will become more challenging. Now, also, these are the towns where you will see that producing those goods will require jobs at the lower end of the economic spectrum. So the jobs that you create through a services sector boom is qualitatively, in my view, is maybe is the upper end of the income spectrum.
Okay.
Whereas in the manufacturing sector, you create more jobs in the lower end of the economic spectrum. And this policy of focusing on, now you have got 43 such towns of export excellence. Now, these 4 towns actually tell you that what the government wants to do, because one is that 3 of them are in Uttar Pradesh, which is India's largest state, and has also got a lot of local skills which can be exploited to harness more foreign exchange resources for the country. And Faridabad is in Hyderabad, but it is very close to the capital, and therefore it has all the infrastructure benefits. So therefore, I think the idea of encouraging towns of export excellence, and in my view, this thing should actually expand even more. There are many other towns, in Rajasthan, in Madhya Pradesh, in Gujarat, and even in South, which are closer to the port ports. So therefore, this idea of taking the export initiative down to the district level, where the actual export work is going on, helps in 2 ways. One is it allows the benefits of a higher faster economic activity to percolate down to the people. And second, you tend to get exports and foreign exchange resources for the country. And so therefore, I think it's a win-win proposal. And it will probably require a lot of involvement and participation of the local governments, even not only at the state government level, but also at the local self-government level, the panchayats or the urban municipal bodies. So this will help us realize a goal, not just through the central's initiative, but also with the initiatives of
the state governments and the local administration,
as well as the third tier of governance.
Okay, indeed. At all levels, they'll have to be in sync, in synergy to go ahead and realize these goals there as well. Mr. Pandey, this also the identifying TEs and adding 4 more there. This also seems to be in tandem with the idea of one product, one district as well, which was launched earlier. And now it seems it goes a step further to give a push towards the exports also. Those areas where the products being manufactured there or the merchandise being manufactured there is, is more in demand, then we give a push in the export sector as well.
Yes, yes, very much. This is a strong connect with one district, one product program, and connecting the small artisans, handicraft producers to the international market. So in this policy, you see, but in 2018, the courier export limit was only 25,000. Then it was raised to 5 lakh. And now from 5 lakh, it has been raised to 10 lakh. So this 10 lakh consignment for courier limit is a big push for high value items, and it will have a strong connect with this kind of a merchandise, handicrafts, jewelry, and others there. So for that, the boost e-commerce through that, connecting the local traders to international market. And as Dr. Sahai was saying, that this e-commerce is expected to grow up to $300 billion turnover from the e-commerce segment alone. So I think this is all the dots connecting with giving local employment push, preserving the handicrafts, creating a brand for that, and boosting merchandise exports.
Okay. One final thing which we would like to understand, since Mr. Bhattacharya, in your first response, you're talking about a bit more push required when we're talking about merchandise. What is it that can be done in the months to come or in the years to come? Because this policy says that there will be changes or amendments made as and when required. It's not a fixed term policy.
Well, absolutely. I think that I would just highlight two issues. Mr. Pandey rightly pointed out about the rising import intensity of India's exports, and so therefore, if a dynamic fix to the policy is required, which we have to make sure that the zero rating of exports by compensating the exporters for the duties that they pay. Because we have seen some import duties been increased in the last few years, and the exporters' money are blocked if they are going to import some raw materials or some components which go into their export products. So therefore, if we have to maintain our current import duty structure, which seems to be given right now, we must make sure that the compensation, that the policy of red tape, which is remission of duties and taxes on exported products, that policy, the administrative efficiencies will have to be raised several-fold. I think the exporters' money cannot be allowed to be blocked, which is paid by way of paying import duties. So that is number one. And number two, since the focus is on e-commerce, it will be good to ensure that the big giants on the e-commerce space, they should be encouraged more and more to tap into these towns of export excellence, and how they can use these TEs to boost their e-commerce exports from India. And maybe some sort of direct interaction or consultation can take place with these e-commerce giants, so that they use these 43 towns of export excellence to tap more and mobilize more export products from these towns and use them for the e-commerce exports.
Okay. So there it is. Thank you so much, Mr. Bhattacharya, Mr. Pandey as well, and Dr. Sahai also. We would like to thank him for sharing your views and inputs on this key policy which has been announced by the government today, the Foreign Trade Policy 2023, which takes into consideration various aspects, building upon our strong points, enhancing our capacities as well, giving a bit more push to the merchandise sector, and focusing on e-commerce, giving those incentives where required. We'll keep a close watch on this sector and keep on bringing you detailed discussion and analysis on various other topics as well. Till then, keep watching Sunset Television. Thank you.